You're gonna be scared to be alone with me.
I walk in here. That's what I said. I walk in here. I see 75-kilo waves. So I'm gonna try to jump out the window.
It is a problem.
I'm to love going on podcasts. It makes you think also. There's always something like that. I mean, it's a little more. I do a lot of Hebrew also. That's a little bit more challenging, but
Did you speak Hebrew fluently?
I guess well enough that they'll have me on a podcast or on TV.
Okay.
I didn't have the Ulpana education either. I had yeshiva education. That stunk.
Really? Okay, well, we're going to get into the whole thing.
Yeah,
We're going to get into the whole thing.
I will answer anything you ask.
Really? Anything?
Hi, and welcome to the Dayna Show, where we discuss in English day-to-day life of Israeli citizens, our concerns and aspirations for the country, and everything in between. I'm your host, Dayna Kaplan, and we're so glad that you could join us.
So I'd like to welcome everyone to the Dayna Show podcast. My name is Dayna Kaplan, and as usual, I begin the podcast saying that we still have hostages in Gaza, and we think about them every day, and we wish our soldiers a safe return as well. Thank you for protecting us, and we're rooting for you. And on that note, I have a short introduction that I wrote for you, Joseph Gitler. Okay. When we think about the war, we often picture about the front lines. We think about the soldiers, sirens, hostages, and our loss. But what we don't always see are the quieter battles, the ones being fought in empty fridges at kitchen tables and inside the hearts of families who simply can't afford their next meal. Today's guest has made it his life's mission to fight that silent war. Joseph Gitler is the founder and voluntary chairman of Leket Israel, the country's largest food rescue organization. Every year, Leket saves millions of pounds of food that would have gone to waste and delivers it into the hands of people who need it the most. Single mothers, Holocaust survivors, struggling families, and children who otherwise might go to bed hungry. In a time when so much feels broken, Joseph's work reminds us that healing can begin with something as simple and sacred as a hot meal. Joseph, thank you so much for being here. Your work doesn't just nourish bodies, it restores dignity, hope, and connection. I'm so honored to have you on the show. Thank you for coming.
Thank you for having me on. I'm honored to be on it.
My pleasure. My pleasure. So most of my guests here, because it's an English-speaking podcast, are Olim, people who've made Aliyah. So if we can start with your background,
Sure.
where you came from, and what was your impetus to make Aliyah?
Sure. Yes, I fit the bill. I always tell people, actually, I'm quite boring. Like most of our communities where we live, I don't want to get in trouble by saying either of the names. The vast majority of us kind of grew up similar backgrounds, but my late father used to say, clearly you guys drank the Kool-Aid. Not enough of us. It's a very small percentage of us who actually make it here. But the education did work on some of us, clearly, because there's big communities of people from our backgrounds who did make it here ultimately. I grew up in New York, in Washington Heights, as I was mentioning before.
You grew up in Washington Heights?
Yes, I know. That's the reaction.
In Spanish Harlem?
Yeah, listen, we were there. I was 15 when I moved to Teaneck. I'm the oldest of 4 boys. So I really did grow up. I was just on a trip with my 3 younger brothers. And we were reminiscing, and it's interesting when you're reminiscing because my youngest brother's 10 years younger than me, so he was 5 when we moved to Teaneck. So, different life experiences, different schools. But I really did grow up in Washington Heights. It's hard to believe now. It seems so far away. And actually, it's nice when you go there now. It's kind of gentrified a little bit, which is pretty cool to see. It was a rough neighborhood that we grew up in. We were shielded by our parents. We didn't see a lot of that, but it was there. And so I went to school locally to yeshiva, and then in 6th grade, my parents switched me to what's called Moriah School of Englewood. So, started going to, those type of schools, Yeshiva University High School, Yeshiva University. Like I said, very boring. And no regrets, but, not that interesting. Summer camps also, Zionist summer camps, and I think that's for sure a big reason I'm here today. The education at home, my parents were the types that really wanted to make Aliyah. Didn't work out for them. We grew up in our kitchen, there were signs all over in Hebrew, how to say this, mazleg, sakin, all over. So that, of course, had its own impact on us. And then, of course, I guess the I almost used the wrong terminology. I'll get myself in trouble. But I guess the defining reason is when I was in Bnei Akiva summer camp here, Machach Ba'aretz, I met my wife, who you know from Toronto, Lila, and it was very obvious to us that we both wanted to live here. So when you have a meeting of a minds like that, then it's far easier when one spouse doesn't have to convince the other. So here we are. We've been here for 25 years, mostly good, some very bad, but we don't regret our decision. And our children also, despite all the difficulties they've been through, don't regret it either.
Really? And when you first came here, what were you doing?
So I went to law school in New York, but when we made Aliyah, I had already decided that was not going to be my career here in Israel. I went to work in a
Why not?
I don't know. I probably just went to law school to make my parents happy. I think they just said, wherever life takes you, it will be useful.
Mm-hmm.
And, hopefully you can always go back to that if you can't find anything else to do with your life. So I think that was part of it. I actually enjoyed it, my 3 years in law school. I think also maybe knowing that perhaps that's not going to be your future makes it more enjoyable. And even when I started working, I knew that the summer after we're moving to Israel. Not that if anyone's watching from that firm, I apologize. You don't say that in an interview, I'm moving in 10 months to Israel. But I do have a little guilt about that, a little bit, but not major guilt. And so when we came, I went to work in a high-tech company, and I worked there for 3 years. And of course, during those 3 years is when the Intifada started, and September 11th, and all the changes that happened in this country. Very rough. I know you were here then also, just an extraordinarily rough time. We've been through so many of them in the 25 years I'm here. In a way, sometimes I don't even know if I should say, maybe emergency mode is the normal and normal is the not the like that just seems to be what life is like here through thick and thin.
I think that you're right. I think that we were living in sort of a la land that, come to Israel, everything will be nice. Okay, there's, here at Po V'Sham, there's going to be something that happens, but, a real war, we haven't really had one in a while. And we're starting to see it's an illusion. While we were sitting in our homes in Modi'in or Ranana or wherever it is, places like Sderot were getting hit all the time with missiles.
Sure. Look, I'm hoping the illusion is changing.
I hope
I'm
so
optimistic.
too.
I'm optimistic. People say I'm naive, but I like to say I'm optimistic because it's much more pleasant to be optimistic about the future, despite what we've been through in the last year and a half. And of course, we have hostages and we have soldiers at risk and we have soldiers, just yesterday there was a terrible incident with a soldier. And so this is ongoing and it's not over. It felt like it was over to people after the grand success in Iran, but it's not over. And I think, unfortunately, we realize we're probably never going to be able to let our guard down, or at least not in the next few decades. So that dream of telling your children, you may not have to serve in the army. And you are correct in what you said. The army for us was, you go to the army. There's attendant risks, but no one thought of it along the lines that we've been through the last year and a half. And
do you have kids in the army?
I have kids in the army, many, yes.
Yeah.
Many? Yes.
Many. Okay.
Many kids in the army, yes.
Yeah.
What do you say?
Listen, before October 7th, I don't know if you can relate to this, but when my kids went in, I have 2 boys now that are in Miluim, but before October 7th, so my oldest was already done with Sadir and he was in Miluim. And I was like, okay, so, they go to the army, Lo Naim. I don't like it so much, but you kind of plug your nose, hold your breath and wait till it's over.
Yeah.
You never really thought that your kids were going to be fighting in a war.
Correct.
I think that reality was really, really hard, at least for me to digest.
Yeah, I think people thought we were done with that, and clearly we weren't, and we're still not, but let's try to be optimistic.
Did you ever think of leaving?
Usually when I say I'm leaving, I'm saying if they raise taxes above this amount, I'm leaving. But I also say that half jokingly. Look, I think, people say to me, are you happy? I said, I've been here 25 years. Don't ask me that question, okay? It is what it is. I've made my life decision. Yes, overall, we're happy. Life is generally wonderful here. We have a wonderful community and great friends. But you're here for ulterior motives. Like this is
Not
not
about
like
the
moving.
money.
Yeah, if you want someplace that's beautiful and carefree, you can move to Thailand, or if you don't want to pay taxes, you can move to Monaco. There's a million places you can move to if you're fortunate to have, a Canadian passport, American, but you can figure it out, okay? But that's not why people come here, and that's a mission, okay? I did not. I will never say I came here on Aliyah expecting to live a normal, regular life like most people do from our communities. I did not expect that I would drop everything and enter the charity world. There is one area I can say I have no regrets, because not just because of what it's become, just because it's changed what my life's trajectory is. I spend almost all my time involved in charity, and there's something really unique, and I have a lot of, as we say in Hebrew, hakara tov, for that. That this is how I get to spend my time, not just on Leket, on so many charities. It's a special existence, and I'm appreciative of that, very much so.
So tell me how you got involved with the charity work. What you said you were working in high tech, right? So what happened to flip it over into or to
Right. So I think to me a few things happened. One, height of the Intifada, it was very rough here. To live in a country, and we've been through this again now, but to live in a country where you think twice before you go to a restaurant, before you think twice to get on a bus, before you drop your kids off at Gan, it's a very difficult reality. And a reality like that also slows down tourism and all types of hospitality. I mean, this playbook has been time and time again. For us, it was the second Intifada, and then it was various other mini wars, we'll call them, and then COVID, and then etc. And so, at the height of the Intifada, there was just this feeling that to me at least, there's this new class of people, not historically poor. We have communities here that are historically poor. We don't have to get into the reasons why. There's all types of reasons. But the feeling that I got from things I read or saw, or people knocked on the doors, was a different type of reality. People who normally wouldn't be, you grew up in Toronto, I grew up in New York. We're used to people knocking on our doors asking for charity. I just met with a girl who grew up in Raleigh. I said to her, "You never got anyone knocking on your door."
My dad had a sign on his business door of hours where he was accepting schnorrs.
Okay, so but that means he was very committed to helping them.
Yeah.
Okay, meaning, let me do my business, but I'm going to give. That's like very high level. I give him a lot of credit.
He had showed pilud for tzedakah.
That's beautiful. I think that's
because he couldn't do it all day long, or else he wouldn't.
Right, but it showed he was willing. A lot of
Yeah.
people just don't answer
Yeah.
the bell, and it's hard. It's hard to answer the door, and it's hard
Yeah.
to know if it's real. And then you say,
Yeah.
do I really care if it's real? If someone's willing to knock on the door, I should just give them something. But
Right.
the feeling I got, there were just a couple of people who knocked on my door. It just felt different. It wasn't the usual cast of characters. I laugh sometimes. A guy would knock on my mother's door in Teaneck, and then I would get on a plane and say, "I just saw you at my mother's." So, and that's what my father-in-law used to give them. "You're from Israel? Wonderful. I have shkalim left over." And that used to get them really. And so again, it wasn't out of a lack of, wasn't out, we're joking about it, but it's, someone who's willing to knock on someone's door has reached a low point. And so when someone's knocking on your door and says, my spouse and I both worked in a hotel, and basically we're on, leave because there's no tourists, or I worked in high tech and I have a mortgage which I can't pay anymore. That's not, usually it's chasan v'kala, it's we don't have food, it's real poverty type of things. These felt different. And so that took me in one direction. And then of course the other direction was life goes on. And we were still going to weddings and bar and bat mitzvahs, and people were still going to hotels, and everyone always, no matter where you are, commented on how generous and how bountiful the land of Israel is, or the Jewish people are, when they are serving food. Okay? It's not just at Shabbat tables, it's at all these events. It's at the famous Israeli breakfast at the hotel where people all comment on the same thing. And so really for me, those two things put together, I said, this is just doesn't make sense. We have all this food, which I didn't know at the time whether people would be willing to give it away, but we have all this food, it's readily available, I think. And we have all these people in need who could make use of this food. It's a depreciating asset. It doesn't have a lot of time. If you don't get it now, you don't get it ever. And what a shame, especially if those who have it, and that's maybe the key, can't make money off of it anymore, right? Leket is a philanthropic organization in the sense that most of our operations run from donations. One of our key tenets, though, is that we don't expect the food donors to be philanthropists. They can be if they wish to be. If they can sell it, be my guest. But if they can't, please don't let perfectly good food go to waste. And so that's really what Leket is. So I was disturbed by these two things. I started to investigate. I started to call caterers. I actually have to give credit to Toronto. I took a trip to Toronto and I went to what was it's called Canada Second Harvest, which is a food rescue organization in Toronto. And they opened all the doors for me. And I went on their trucks and I met with their board. And I went to agencies and I saw how they work. And so I came back with a lot of information and a head of steam. And really, it's just been 22 years of the crises have been difficult, and having to change your operations more often than you'd like when you take pride in the fact that you're a 365-day-a-year organization. Like we didn't create Leket as an emergency organization. It's supposed to be providing food to people in need all the time, which is what it does. And when I came back, it was very simple. It's a big operation, but it's been very simple, at least from my point of view over the years. This is what we do. We've grown it organically. We've added projects over the years. We have lots of other things we want to do. And a lot of people count on us today. So we have big responsibility.
Tell me how the people who are wasting the food find you, or do you find them?
Right. So I'll start by saying that, unfortunately, that despite food waste being a topic in general that we read and hear more about in the press, and kids are more aware of it, and environmental issues, I have not seen much of a change in food waste as a general concept. Okay. And that's disheartening. What's heartening, I guess, is that there is Leket and partners of ours who are there to try to save that food. Okay, right? There's this tension because if they don't waste, then I don't have food to feed the poor. So do I really want them to waste, right? So that's a bit of an issue.
Yeah,
but that has
then
changed.
they'll go into poverty as well.
Right.
And they're going to need you too.
But it hasn't changed. Meaning, we see changes. Like I remember in the beginning of our journey, and then I'll answer the question. About a year or two in, so I said I want to write thank you letters to the food. We always said thank you, and we brought them gifts. But I want to write a letter to one of the companies that's giving us food. And in it, I made the mistake of writing, in the past 2 years, you've given us, 75,000 meals. And they got the letter like, what the heck? And they just changed slightly how they serve, and that killed us. They made things more short order cooking, as opposed to having, a big aluminum tin of ready-made chicken. You come up in a corporation, you order chicken, they cook it for you in a minute, a thin piece of chicken, and then if there are no proteins when we're talking about cooked meals, it's almost not a good use of our time. Not that you don't need salads and carbs, but if we don't have the protein also, I'm not going to send a volunteer at the time or today one of our small refrigerated vans to pick up the food. So change does happen, but it's very rare. The waste continues unabated. In general, we're very aggressive about finding sources of food. As we've become better known, yes, we do get calls to our office. That's more from farmers who've heard about us. But in general, it's an outbound type of operation, exercise. We have a whole team of, we call them food raisers. And we have a call center that's just literally calling farmers day in, day out. We're from Leket. This is what we do. Do you have instances like this? Not now. Call me back in 3 months. Oh, where were you? Yesterday, I plowed over my field. But we're very well. It's very rare today for, at least in the farming community, for a farmer not to know about us. They really have to stick their head in the sand, or they don't want to know about us because they don't want to help. But most food donors in this country are more than willing. Cooked food is more complicated. It's riskier.
Right. Do you have like health inspections
Sure.
and stuff like
Yeah.
that?
So we have a nutritionist who's in charge of our health and safety. She works with the Ministry of Health. We say in Hebrew, Al tiftach bel satan, don't open your mouth to Satan. 22 years it's been quiet on that front. I can't, say that I've never given anyone a stomach ache. I don't know the answer to that, but overall it's
Hopefully
worked
not.
well. We're careful. We're different also now. We like to say we're too big to fail. I don't really mean that, but a lot of people count on us. And so, some of the type of food rescue activities that we might have done in the early days, or as I call it, the Wild West, when it was me by myself for a few months and then a small group of volunteers. Some of the things that we might have picked up in those days today are trained professional drivers who walk around with thermometers might say, I'm not going to take that. And sometimes it's painful because it could be a tub with 50 pieces of chicken in it, which is very valuable. But if they're not comfortable with how it's been kept out or what temperature it's at, they're just going to say no. And that's okay. We work with our food providers also to try to make sure they, to the best of their ability, without getting in the way of their business, keep things, in the safest possible manner if they want to ensure that it ends up in the mouths of poor people.
Joseph, my question to you is, if you were observant onto what was going on, why is the government not like involved in this? Meaning, like, if there's such a huge amount of people who are starving in poverty, and there is all these farmers who are have all this extra food that it's waste, why don't they make the connection?
Okay, so
Wouldn't that help them out?
look, I'll give a few answers. I'll start with the
Okay.
cynical one,
Okay.
which is not me, but people will say it to me, and that is the government knows that the Jewish people are not going to let people starve, so we don't have to deal with it. Private, and there's something to that. I don't think you'll see that in a protocol, but essentially that's sort of been the finance ministry, even more so than the welfare ministry, because they hold the purse strings. They basically, for decades, again, you won't see it said like this, but essentially they've said the programs we have in place for helping the poor should ensure them enough money in their pocket to feed themselves properly. Okay, meaning you make under a certain amount of money, you don't pay taxes. You get all these other types of discounts and things like so. You should be able with that to pay. The problem is that Israel, since I've been here in the last 25 years, has become very expensive. Wages have risen dramatically at the low end also, but not enough to keep up with the inflation in housing and food and gas, etc. And so
It's not enough to cover the cost of
it's
living.
generally not enough if you're at a low salary. Again, I look at the beginning of the war, produce prices up 35 to 40%. Again, if you're comfortable, so you might be a little more careful, but you'll be able to feed your family properly. Maybe you won't buy blueberries at the beginning of the season. Maybe you'll only buy them in the middle of the season. Maybe you won't buy strawberries at the beginning. You'll wait till the price goes down. But the poor among us get hit the hardest by that, which makes Leket's work, of course, more valuable. But so I'll
Are
start.
you dealing with mostly produce? Or are you dealing with with meals?
Both, although
Okay.
produce is a much larger part of our operation at this point. So look, so there's the cynical answer, which is, I'm sure partially true. Then there's just the state of Israel is unfortunately, constantly in a state of war. And every time there's money for things like this, it evaporates, which we've seen. We had, not for Leket per se, but for the issue of food insecurity, about 2 years ago, there was finally agreement, a line item, 200 million shekels a year for food insecurity, which is it's a tiny amount of money, but it's still significant. A line item on the budget means it happens every year unless someone removes it. And that was us and other organizations making sure that would happen. Again, whether we were going to get some of that or not is irrelevant. It was just more showing, and the government does a few tens of millions of shekels here, and we're part of a program where we provide produce to poor communities in Israel, and the government pays for that. It's probably in the tens or even hundreds of millions of shekels a year, but this is a problem in the billions. Okay, so that's part of it. Another part is every country has priorities, and you may not like the priorities, but there are areas of social services where the state of Israel is really good. Okay, I'm not taking the work that's done. I'm talking about the funding of it. And you can agree or disagree. I've done, and we have done in Leket and our partner agencies over the years to try to change the government's view and to bring more finances into the issue, or even change taxes so that people will donate more. It's it's just not really succeeded. And look, you could look at it negatively. On the other hand, that forces you to work really hard at fundraising and to build a fundraising apparatus that needs to be effective. So I always say I'd like more government support at this point, but I'm not going to slow down with our fundraising because we'll probably get this year 5 or 10% of our budget from the government. Okay, so some people say that's great, other people say that's terrible. That's my reality. I don't care what it is or not. We'll keep on doing what we can to try to get more. But all that being said, the beauty of building up a fundraising machine, if we want to call it, and having the respect of your donors means that when these emergencies hit, we are very able quickly to mobilize because people trust us. After October 7th, we were able to do almost everything we wanted in very large numbers because we've, I think, built up this respect in the marketplace. And so people knew.
To ask you, how has the fundraising been since the war intensified? Well, since October 7th.
Look,
has it gone down? Has it
No.
gone up?
Okay, so look, unlike COVID, right? So when COVID started, we basically, like the first few days, we were having management meetings basically saying, okay, get ready to shut down. Like, there's going to be no money. Yeah, people were you may not recall anymore, but people were very nervous. What's going to happen with the economy? There's going to be no more donations. People are shutting their businesses. Who knows how long people aren't going to have normal income. In the end, what happened was the philanthropic world understood that this was the biggest crisis probably since World War II. And if not, I'll say it in Hebrew and then in English, Im lo achshav e matai, if not now, when? So if normally your foundation gives 5%, so you'll give 8% or 10%, you're not going to go out of business. And that's what happened. So money flowed in the end. And our operation, which became much more expensive during COVID, didn't miss a beat. We had to make a lot of changes, but we were able to do what we needed to do to feed the poor. After October 7th, Saturday night of October 7th, we already had a management Zoom with the understanding that everything we normally do is not going to be happening as of the next day. There's not going to be food from hotels, and there's not going to be food from army bases, and there's not going to be food from corporate cafeterias, and there's not going to be events for a while. And the farmers, God knows, we didn't know all the details then, but we knew there was damage. We knew there was killing. We knew there was kidnapping. We didn't know that all the foreign workers are going to flee, but it could have been reasonable to think that. We didn't know that the second biggest group of agriculture workers, which are Palestinians, were basically being shown the door, lead to a massive farming crisis. We didn't know all that. But we did know that the funding community was going to step up. That was not. No one had any qualms about that. Okay, we knew this money's going to flow in. We didn't know how much. And yes, a ton of money flew in the months after October 7th, which allowed us to do things that we don't normally do. We purchased 10,000 tons of produce. We don't do that. We purchased over 2 million meals. We don't usually purchase. We set up 2 loan funds for farmers. We set up a grant fund for farmers to help them replace equipment that was destroyed by Hamas.
Wow.
We have sent over 10,000 buses with volunteers. We don't normally play. When you come, the Kaplan Bar Mitzvah, to volunteer at Leket, we don't provide transportation, and anything you pick is for Leket. Since October 7th, any farmer who needs help will send a bus. We'll recruit volunteers. We have buses going every day. And the farmers keep the crops for themselves because they need to survive. We're very concerned about farmer survival and the long and short-term food security of this country. And so the only reason we're able to do all those things and continue to do a lot of different things is because people have come forward. Chas v'shalom, okay, woe, I like to translate things, so I don't know who's watching, woe unto us if the few months after October 7th happens again or continues, because that just means we're in a nightmare again. Okay, so yes, when the Iranian attack started, we told our supporters we're probably going to have to do a lot more differently while this is going on. So again, we were able to raise significant funds, but we spend them in ways we don't normally do. We're not a hedge fund. We're not in the, we're not collecting money. And so now it's interesting. The war with Iran ended quicker than people expected.
Is it over?
Well,
Is it over, Joseph?
temporarily. But for us and our work, it ended quicker than we expected. Okay, and things got back to normal relatively much quicker than expected. So some of that funding now is being used, or a big portion of it now is going to be used to assess the needs of the 17,000 people who are displaced from this recent war, and to see where is our place in helping them. We're not the only ones. There'll be many other, there's government, there's insurance, but there are going to be people who need help. And even yesterday, people were told that by August 1st, the government wants them out of the hotels. It's just too expensive, and is going to help them find housing and cover the cost of the housing in some way. But people's homes were destroyed. So there will be a place for Leket in that as one of the partners. Even now, every hotel that has displaced people, we've set up fruit and vegetable stands. So even though they're getting fed by the hotel, it's still nice to have your own stuff in your room. That was an issue,
It's all by donation. It's all free for them.
Everything's free. We all our food distribution is free to the end user. We never charge, because we want in this case it's individuals, but in general it's the agencies. We want them to focus on their work. So if an after-school club for kids knows that all its food is being provided by Leket, they can do their job. Food is important. It's a hook. It fills the bellies, but that's not their goal. Their goal is education, rehabilitation, hope. And we've seen, thousands and thousands of success stories over the year where we're part of it. We're not educating, we're not dealing. And that's, by the way, that's very much when people meet me, they're surprised that my phone's not ringing off the hook. Well, I'm not the CEO of Leket, right? So I don't run the day-to-day. But even our CEO, it's not the same as if you're managing a soup kitchen where every person there is in crisis and every moment is something new. We're running a business, okay, which looks like a business, it smells like a business, but it's a not-for-profit. And so it's a very different type of animal like that, because we actually in general are not dealing with the hard cases. Allows us to keep our focus on what we do and make sure we get as much food to those agencies who are really doing the hard work.
I read an interesting statistic about the war and how when the war intensified, the food waste became greater. What was it, like 16 billion tons of food are being wasted?
That was our report.
Yeah,
Yeah, that was our report.
So I saw that, and I don't understand how that happens.
Well, again, like I can think back to COVID, but we can just take this situation. So a lot of the waste that happened was in the first few months of the war, when it just wasn't safe for farmers to go into their fields. Everything rotted. So you had tens of thousands of dunams of that crops just rotted. Take the north, where interestingly in the south, even though there was much more physical damage to the farms, we and volunteers and the farmers were able to get in there within weeks, if not months, and start rehabilitation and start replanting, and some places picking. So there was tremendous waste there, but that was really only over the course of the first few months. In the north, it was basically more than a year where it was too dangerous. And we saw farmers who stayed. There were unfortunately a few incidents where people were killed. Farm hands were killed and owners were killed working in the fields. And so that is the bulk of the waste. The other big waste happened because we kept on having changes in what was permissible. So imagine you had a bar mitzvah planned for Friday of the Iran war, and the caterer already was preparing all the food, and suddenly the government basically says, everyone stay home, no events, no nothing. So you have a lot of waste there. Waste happens often. Some waste happens because there's no other choice. We need to have more food than the population could possibly eat because stuff happens, damage, a war. So you're going to have waste no matter what. You're never going to get to zero waste, But can you get it from 20% to 10%? I believe you can, but there doesn't seem to be much will for that. And that's why it's important that a Leket exists. But additional waste, which is what you're talking about, happens when typical life changes. Okay, and so we saw it now in all the beginnings of the war. We saw it in COVID in massive ways. The waste was staggering. There's nothing you could do about it. We have a farmer that we work with a lot in Pre-Gan. Pre-Gan is a tiny moshav in the south of Israel, which was spared on October 7th only because neighboring communities came to their aid. And unfortunately, a bunch of those people were killed, but in Pre-Gan, no one was killed. And we have a farmer, Yossi, who we work with a lot there. And he loves to say to me, this is COVID again. In COVID, no one buys my leek. No one buys my fennel. All they buy is tuna and toilet paper. And after October 7th, he said it was the same thing. And, the pain for him is he still doesn't have enough workers. He normally grows on 500 dunams, which is 125 acres. And now he's growing on 100. And he's not growing his normal crops because he's concerned that he doesn't have enough market for them. Because a lot of his market for that kind of stuff is hotels and fancy restaurants. And they keep on opening and closing and opening and closing. And, so instead he's growing tomatoes on 100 dunams, which is much less profitable. But he's confident that he'll always have a market for that. So there's a lot of pain going around from the last year and a half economically.
How do you find these people? Do they contact you or do you contact them? So you said you're making.
I think most of it is outbound, but as you get better known, more of it is inbound. Certainly when someone needs something from us, it's inbound. Okay? But that being said, we will survey in times of emergency. Like, I know now that we have staff who are going to start to visit the hotels where people are staying to try to get a sense of what's needed and where our place in that is. We don't normally buy cooking equipment, right? That's not what we do as an organization, but we got word that there are displaced people staying in someplace in Herzliya, which is apartments. And, they left their houses with nothing. So we have this emergency money and our donors know that it's not going into our pockets. And we used, a few thousand shekels to buy some cooking equipment for families so they could, do what they wanted to do and feed their families. And so, there's just, whatever. It's dispiriting how much need there is. You just...
Yeah. And the prices keep going up. Like, I always say to my kids, well, in Israel, like, during crisis, like, the supermarkets make a killing, right? I mean, because most people, they bite the bullet. Like, maybe they can't afford it, but they're still going to buy the food that they need, right? And the supermarkets are busting. They're full all the time.
Yeah. Look, I believe in supply and demand and prices that come from it, but there is no doubt profiteering here and there that happens in these situations. It's not always, sometimes prices do go up and someone can explain to you why they went up. And if you heard it, you would accept it. But again, for me, knowing that there's people who really don't have the money, that's where the pain really comes in. And so that's why we are very aggressively growing Leket all the time. When I started, what concerned me most was the working poor. That made me crazy. How could someone work and need help, right? So a little bit naive, fine. This is the way of the Western world. There are people who just don't earn enough money, even though they're working to take care of their families as they should be allowed to. Of course, Leket doesn't solve that problem, right? That's a marketplace problem. But what we do is take $1 from a donor and rescue $5 worth of food and put that food in people's and feed people with that.
What do you rescue $5 worth of food?
The food is free, right? We have expenses, trucks, gas, insurance, warehousing, but the value of the food is far greater than our expenses. So, I always tell people, if this was a business, you drop everything. You'd invest every penny you have in Leket. If it was a business, if I told you I have a business, by the way, if anyone tells you this, don't invest, okay? If I said I have a business that if you invest $1, you get $5 out of every dollar you invest, you'll invest everything, right? You'll go to your kids' piggy banks. You'll take the money out of there. You'll cash in your life insurance, everything to get that. And that's what we are as a charity because our main asset, which is food, is always free of charge. Okay. And so even though we have very large expenses around getting that food, so by the way, even if it was 1-to-1, Leket would make sense because there's environmental reasons and there's volunteer reasons and there's poverty reasons for rescuing this food. So it makes sense to rescue it almost no matter what. But the beauty of Leket, I think a lot of the reason people like supporting us is they know that their money gets stretched when they give it to us. And I invite everyone, come come and volunteer, come to our distribution center. You come to our distribution center, you see, you'll see what a ton of carrots looks like. And then you'll see what 100 tons of carrots looks like, because we have 100 bags of 1 ton of carrots that came in over the last 2 days from Kibbutz Shluchot in the north, which is the biggest carrot dealers in the
These
country.
are all Odafim. These are all extras that they had.
I would say everything's a story, okay? Like if you looked at these bags, so they will actually tell you. So for example, yesterday I was giving a tour to someone and it said on it, Sugbet, which means grade B, katan, small. So these were carrots that are just a little small. They don't make it to the marketplace. Sometimes it says Sugbet Gadol. They're too big, which is hard to believe something can be too big, but people like their carrot. We've all been trained. That's part of it, of what something should look like. But, we don't all look alike. And a lot of produce looks alike because there's a lot of genetic engineering and modification that's gone on. But, there's always your mutants.
Right.
And there's a lot of mutants. And mutants might be 10% or 15% or 20%. So there's a lot of stuff that looks different. And a lot of it that, if it made it to the marketplace at a discount, which I've seen in supermarkets around the world, not so much here yet, it gets sold right away. People aren't stupid. They know. They know it's just as good. It's just as safe. So who cares if it looks funny? But if I'm in a supermarket and the funny looking stuff is the same price, well, why am I going to buy that? And so Leket is there to take advantage of that. And we're there to take advantage of order cancellations when the crop isn't exactly what the customer ordered. Especially that happens a lot for export. Market price is the number one reason. Okay, so a farmer might have 100
Do you
tons.
visit farms a lot?
I visit them less than I used to, but I used to visit a lot. We have a whole team that does that, visiting.
Yeah.
We have a team visiting farmers every day, calling farmers every day. We have volunteers in farms all around the country all the time. We have our own paid team of pickers. For us, the ultimate from an efficiency point of view is when it's picked already and we just have to pick it up. But we understand that farmers are trying to survive. So we would never expect a farmer to pick on our behalf. But if they've picked already and now they see, I'm not making any money on this, or even just trucking this to where it has to go is going to put me at a loss, then we're the address. And we don't feel good about it, but that's just the marketplace. And the farmers are really exceptional people who are thrilled when their crops don't go to waste.
Besides farms, what other kind of places donate their food, or do you get food from?
So we really only focus on 2 areas. It's really cooked meals and produce. We used to do chilled dairy products, and then we realized we can find partners of ours to do that. It's easy. It's stored in Strauss's refrigerators. Send the truck. It's perfect. It's not complicated. So even though it's nice to distribute that stuff, and even though it's good for our numbers, we realize that who cares about any of that? Let's just free up truck space to do other things. And that's very much our modus operandi. We're here to fill gaps. We don't do any dry goods. If someone calls and says, I'll only work with you, we might do it. But in general, anything that comes our way that's not from our core, we pass on to partners of ours. We push hard to get our partners to work together. This is not a zero-sum game. Everyone's taking care of the poor. If you hear of something and it's too much for you, don't you dare waste it. Share it with other agencies. We try to be a little bit of a guerrilla in that way, use our power to make people work together. It's not perfect, it's not foolproof, but we work very hard at that. And said enough.
For the past 5 years, well, up until January, I was working in Magen David Adom. I was a choveshet, EMT, and a bus driver. And I was working in Chulon and Bat Yam and Tel Aviv as well. And for the first time in my life, I saw extreme poverty. Not necessarily even people who were living on the street, but people who, like regular people, just had no food in their fridge. Like you'd ask them, take your pill or whatever, and it comes with food. They're like, I don't have anything to eat with it.
Yeah.
And so for people like that, what is their alternative? Are individuals able to get to your organization as well?
We get a lot of calls from individuals, but we pass all those calls on to our partner agencies in the cities they live. Like, I'm comfortable saying that almost anyone in this country who's willing to ask for help when it comes to food can find a solution. There are agencies, many agencies in urban centers. We don't have a lot of rural poverty in this country. That's like a big American thing, rural poverty. Rural in this country is usually middle or up, the kibbutzim, the moshavim. Those are usually wealthier places in general. Maybe the kibbutzim aren't wealthy, but they can take care of their people. They can feed them. So it's a lot of urban poverty, a lot of Haredi poverty, Bedouins, especially in the South. But it crosses all lines. There's poverty in every community. And here we are. Modi'in is always an interesting case study because Modi'in is really a middle-class city. So it has for sure a far smaller percentage of poverty than even a place like Ra'anana. As a percentage, Ra'anana is 100 years old. You have people who've been there a long time. They might be, house rich, but cash poor, or they might be renting and struggling to make ends meet. And so there is poverty, but there is food and help available. Sometimes people are proud. Sometimes people don't know where to go. That's an issue.
Right.
Sometimes the welfare departments, not sometimes, always are overwhelmed. They don't have enough social workers.
Yeah.
We're always continually amazed. We'll call the municipality and say, can you give us a list of all the agencies working in your town fighting food insecurity? And sometimes they don't even know what's going on in their own city, not because they don't care, just because they are putting out fires all day. And so it is discouraging to see. It's hard to see, but there really is help for everyone who needs it.
What is it about you, Joseph? Sorry.
No, it's okay.
Joe. My ex-husband's name is Joe. Sorry.
So that's okay. Well, I hope you like me better.
Oh, yeah. I actually do. Stop. Sorry.
Whoever's watching, that wasn't nice. That wasn't nice by either of us. But well, I actually give me a second. Actually, just because you said that, to give a plug, because I'm actually headed tomorrow to Toronto. My grandmother passed away.
I'm sorry.
And most of the reason that I say, she was 99, so it's not like we're not talking about tragic circumstances here. She had a full life. But I only started to be called Joe by some people in 6th grade when I switched schools. And my favorite teacher to this day, Mrs. Dench, said, Joseph, that's too long. I'm going to call you Joe. Okay. I was in a new school. I wanted to fit in. If she wants to call me Joe, people will call me Joe. So actually a lot of people from my Mariah days call me Joe, but my grandmother didn't like it.
No.
She's like, that's the name of a truck driver. By the way, not there's anything wrong. I have many truck drivers who work with me. But for her, the thought of her, numero uno, as she called me, her oldest grandchild, being a truck, even having a truck driver's name was unacceptable. So generally I tell people Joseph, but I'm okay with either one. And in Israel, for your viewers who are unfamiliar, so in Israel, people would say to me, so what do we call you? And I would say, you can call me Joseph, Yosef, or Joe. And so what do they call me?
Yessie.
Correct. You've been here too long. It's like, I gave you guys 3 options. Come on. That's what we live with here. So correct. And I really don't love Yossi. Like, that's just not, I don't love that one. But very, very impressed that you knew exactly what it was. You've been here too long.
I know the shenanigans.
Yeah. There's a lot of shenanigans here. Yeah.
What is it about you, Joseph, that connects you with this project? Did you grow up in this kind of an environment of tzedakah and chesed, or what was it?
I think most people who grow up in our community are in families that are involved in some way with tzedakah and chesed. Look, even the professions. My late father was an ear, nose, and throat surgeon. So much of that is, yes, you're making a living, but so much of that is selflessness and getting up at all hours of the night and being on call, and then of course having what he used to call the Saturday night friends and family clinic, which of course didn't make him any money.
Really?
You're gonna charge your friends? No, it's fine. No, he didn't say that in a harsh way. He just said, like, because an ENT, he was an ear, nose, and throat surgeon, that's kind of like a pediatrician for adults. Right. So people would show up, and he was fine. He was wonderful, and he loved it. But and so I think most of us grew up in homes that, and of course, tzedakah and chesed, we were all doing that. For me, I think part of what resonated with me is I grew up in the 1980s. There was real starvation in parts of the world. We used to hear about it, especially Ethiopia. Right. And it was just unimaginable, right? Even, someone living in Washington Heights, right? Which was not This wasn't like
I
living.
went to Stern by the
Oh,
way.
you went to Stern, but that's
Yeah.
not Washington Heights. That's Midtown.
Yeah, but I
okay?
used to come visit to
Right, correct.
you all the time.
Right, and Washington Heights isn't what it used to be, and New York isn't what it used to be. And I grew up in a New York, which wasn't the most pleasant place to grow up. But that resonates. And of course, to give my mother, credit, she, like most mothers in those days, would say things like, "Finish your plate. There's starving kids in Africa," which of course doesn't really make any sense if you think about it. How does me finishing my plate impact the kid in Africa? But it should. It should impact the kid in Africa, because our waste should feed what we shouldn't waste should take care of the poor. And I think that resonated, that burrows deep into your brain. And I just happen to be someone who, I don't like waste. It makes my family crazy.
Really?
Yeah, because I'm garbage man. They have all types of nicknames for me. And
Really?
yeah, and, I take my work. Don't bring your work home. You brought
This
your
was
work home.
before Leket?
No, it's only made it worse. It's only magnified my craziness. But it's a certain worldview. It's a certain it's and it you see it in many. You'll see it with garbage, and you'll see it with recycling. It's just a certain type of way, and I'm always amazed. Like, why don't you recycle? What's the big deal? Why isn't every restaurant that sells cans and bottles that has a 30-cent deposit on it, 30 agurot, deposit, which is, by the way, like 8 cents US. It's a lot of money. And these things make me crazy. I'm like, I'm a madman, and I cannot help myself. Even after 22 years, behaviors don't change so easily. So look, a solution to poverty is not really Leket. Leket is a Band-Aid.
Right.
Okay. And it's a shame, and it's sad that Band-Aids like this need to exist, but that's the world.
Do you think that with all the surplus, or with all the food that's wasted, we could solve the poverty issue?
We could solve what I call food insecurity. Okay, that might not solve all the poverty issues, but oh yeah, there is more than enough food wasted in Israel to feed everyone. Okay,
Really?
yeah, not even without a doubt. That's why sometimes when
Not food that's like,
no,
not like it's edible.
we call it rescuable food.
Okay.
Okay, yes, more than enough food. Just go to the mall. Okay, just see. Obviously there's food that people waste on their plate. Like, here, I'll give you an example. Okay, this is like, I remember I had my youngest son a couple of years ago. He said he's never been to Eilat. We have a big operation at Eilat. So I said, okay, come down. We'll fly down. We'll one day of Leket and one day of fun. We'll sleep over. Great. Okay. So we stay, of course, in one of the hotels that gives us food for free, because let me give a little back. We go to breakfast, and I'm in war mode, because there's a culture here.
Right.
It's called the culture of, I can't get up twice to go to the buffet. Okay? So people fill up, and they make their own mini buffet on the table.
Right.
And at the end, the waste is staggering, because you took 10 barekas, and you took 10 croissants, and you took 10 slices of bread and huge bowls of salad. And it's just, and my son sees me like eyeing people's table, giving them the evil eye to these other tables. He says, you're going to get into a fight. You're going to get beat up. You're not a tough guy. And he had to like pull me away. He's like, we got to get out of here. And I have a real problem. I was just with my brothers also. We were in a hotel with had a kosher program, and the waste was just staggering. And I actually went to the guy, and I said to him, don't you like money? Like, I do that often. I was like, don't you like money? Right? Like, you're throwing away so much food. He says, that's what my people expect. That's what my people want, which is true to a point.
What does that mean? That's what my people expect.
His customers, when you go to a hotel, you expect when you go to the buffet that the buffet is full.
Abundance.
And by the way, even if you're the last person and it's closing at 2:30 and you're there at 2:29, that's an expectation. But we can change expectations, and we can change the waste. I make people create, like in my house, they'll make a salad, and I'll say to one of my daughters, dress half the salad. You can always add more after. And they're like, oh, leave us.
You're a little cheap, huh?
Not to do it cheap. No, see, you missed the point. I'm sorry. I'm just joking. No, that's fine. You're joking, and I don't get the joke, right?
No,
That's all right.
I'm like that too. If my kids hear this, they'll be
It's
like,
painful.
"You're like that
It's just
too."
painful for me, because then you're throwing it away. And why? Just add, right? You can add. I promise you, my house has everything from everything. And so that's
conscious.
That's what it is. It's a consciousness, which a lot of people don't have. And like, if somehow at the end of life you could tabulate it or calculate it, people would feel like, let's take cigarettes as an example. Like, a lot doesn't work to get people to stop smoking. But once I remember seeing a program where they just worked with people on how much did you spend. People are like, wait, I could have had a summer house
Listen,
if I didn't
my
smoke.
brother quit smoking, and he had this application, and it would calculate how
Cha-ching, cha-ching.
exactly, and he'd be like, "Dayna, like $200. You see this?" I'm like, That's it's
Right.
crazy."
And that's so we try to impress that upon people. You're throwing money. Some people they just have like, I want my Rosh Hashanah table to look like, what do they say, like a Kiyad Hamelech or whatever they say, and they don't care. We've done TV programs where we've gone with the reporters into supermarkets for the holidays and said to people, so how many people in your family? 4. So why do you need 17 boxes of? Well, I want And so again, maybe those people can afford it. The point is, it doesn't matter who you are. You can be Bill Gates. If we believe in this planet and we believe in humanity, if we believe in the resources we've been given, and it doesn't matter who you are, you have no right to waste. I'm not saying I'm perfect. I waste also, but I'm very cognizant of it to a point that can be super annoying for the people around me. So if the people around me are watching this, that's what you got to live with.
So what can the individual person do to combat this situation? Let's say we're in a hotel.
Yeah.
We see all this surplus. What, should we bring a suitcase with us and start packing it up
Okay,
and giving it out?
Okay, so look, I'll make a few comments. So let's okay, the easy one, Leket is easy. Come volunteer with Leket, give us money, let people know about us. That's easy. I mean, maybe not easy, but please do that. Okay, that's number one. Then you have, and I like how you asked the question. Okay, so when you're in a hotel, be conscious of what you take from a buffet. By the way, there's a worse thing that started happening now, because at least if something's in a buffet, maybe it's still rescuable. Maybe it can still be served the next day, depending what it is. Now the new thing when you go to events is family plating, right? Which is where they bring big plates of everything to your table. The minute it hits the table, if it's not in, that's in the garbage. Okay, so that's even like, they've gotten worse in a way. They don't want a plate, but they don't want people to go on buffets. So they found the worst solution when it comes to wasting food, which is just, again, it's too bad. And there's nothing we can do, but that's what the consumers want, or that's how the owners want to run their business, or they want to have less staff and the food is cheaper than the staff. Whatever their calculations are, that's where we are. So how you behave when you go to something with a buffet is part of it. Okay. Get up a second time. It's okay. A third time, it'll be good for you to get up. Eat as much as you want, but you don't like something. Like, I tell my kid, if you don't like something, that's fine. Okay. You don't have to finish it if you don't like it. We're not in Haiti. Right? If you're in Haiti, you don't like it, you're going to eat it. Okay. Now, you grew up in Toronto. Everyone, like so many were children or grandchildren of Holocaust survivors. Like, they ate everything. They didn't care if it tasted bad. We're past that now, at least right now in humanities. If food gets scarce again ever, people go back to eating whatever it is, whether it tastes good or not. We're past that right now in most Western countries. Okay.
Oh, my grandfather used to, sorry, Joseph, my grandfather used to take chicken off of his plate and put it on our plate. Yeah. He would just give us, just so not
Exactly.
to go to waste.
Exactly. And that called so I do that a little bit now with my dog, which is never good for the dog, but okay, what am I going to do? So that culture, I'm not saying that culture has to come back or should come back.
Yeah.
People need to change how they treat something that's really hard to get to the table.
Right.
Okay, that's been lost, and people have to be respectful of that. So that's, and then there's what you do in your own home, right? There's what you purchase, how you purchase it, how much of it you purchase, and there's no such thing as we don't like leftovers. If you don't like leftovers, then you better get your parents to produce food differently in the home. Okay, I don't accept that. I now. We have solutions in our house. We'll eat leftovers till whenever. Everyone has their different, like,
Is
this one.
like leftovers?
No, this one's still Sunday. This one's still Monday. Well, she prepares everything, so it's like she's been with the food. This one's still Sunday. This one's still Monday. This one's still Tuesday. Fine, but we have friends who we know, like a single friend who we know, it helps him if we share with him. So he'll get. We have, because I can't give cooked food to an agency, right? That's just. Even though my kitchen's probably cleaner than most of the kitchens that the agencies get the food for, that's just sort of the way it is. And so everyone can find solutions, right? You can find friends who'll be happy. And by the way, they're even like cute solutions. We have in Ranana something called, I think it's called like Ranana Food Swap. literally there's a WhatsApp group and people say, oh, I have all this leftover from Shabbat. I'm not interested. And people will, I'll take it. Like there are people out there willing to take it even from strangers because, you don't need that if you want to poison someone. You don't need to run out of food.
I was talking to you before about my friend, mutual friend, Viva and Dina Oziel, and she was telling me that she, like, for one Shabbos, she decided to order some food instead of cook. And she had so much left over. She gave it to seminary girls.
Great.
Yeah.
But that's fine. Listen, obviously, I'm focused more on the poor and people who really need it.
Obviously.
But that being said, look, if we reached a situation in Israel, there was no poverty, so we probably wouldn't be able to raise money for food rescue, but food rescue should still happen, okay? Because we shouldn't allow food to go to waste. So if there was no poverty, rescue the food and do other good things with it, right? That's a pipe dream.
What other countries have this besides Canada? You said you went there to get some training.
Every country, every Western country, and all countries have operations like ours. Everyone does things differently. We're really a leader.
We're a leader in Israel?
Leket's definitely a leader. People come to learn from us.
Really?
Yeah, we less so in the last 2 years, and we travel. We have staff that travels.
Because we have the most the longest amount of experience.
I think that when it comes to, let's say, kind of urban food rescue, which is mostly what they do in Toronto or New York, people are very comfortable. That's little markets, supermarkets, hotels, the produce market. People are very comfortable with that. But what we've done, which is basically say we are partners with the farming community. We're doing it every day. We're recruiting volunteers. We're going to companies. We're busing. It's such an intense program that we don't let up on all the time. We want people to see that it's doable. Now, Israel's different. The weather's good. It's a small place. In Ontario, you might not be able to do the same thing. You certainly can't do the same thing all year round, but there is a period between, let's say, May through October, where there's a tremendous amount of agriculture. It's a little further away, so that complicates things. So maybe it's a Saturday, Sunday thing for secular. It can be done. So we want to impress upon people, and that's what people want today. People want fresh produce. The poor want that. They don't want junk.
Right.
And if it's there, and I know because I did a day once years ago I went with someone to visit farmers in suburban, 2 hours from Toronto. You can go 20 minutes from Toronto. I mean, where everyone lives now, Thornhill. So it used to be you could go 10 minutes and be in the farms. Now maybe you have to go half an hour and be in the farms, but it's not that far. And these farmers waste, and they're much bigger. The farms are massive. They don't want to waste. They're all good people. They're all religious people, but they need a solution. And the solution is not unfortunate. If the solution is not them necessarily picking it and trucking it and getting it to who needs or knows it. That's what we've done in Israel. We've given a solution. We've come to the farmers and said, we have a solution for you. Will you work with us? And almost all of them say, where were you yesterday? That's the response.
Really? So besides the farmers, where else do you get food from?
The rest of the food comes from...
Like the protein. Where do you get protein?
The protein's only... So there's not... Unlike other places, there's not a lot of raw protein available for free here. A lot of it comes frozen. And chicken, really, there's not much waste in the chicken market. And once stuff sat in stores for a couple of days, it's more complicated. So our protein is all cooked protein. And that's coming from the hotels, corporate cafeterias, army bases, event halls. And that's in the millions of meals a year.
Really?
Yeah, 10, 11, 12,000 meals every single day.
What?
Yeah.
Wow.
And by that, that's small. We have a population here of 10 million. What's 10,000? It sounds big. And we do the math, it's big, but think about it. We don't get to every army base. How much waste? I still get calls from people. I'm in this army base. Where's Leket? We heard all about you. How are you not here? All the time we hear that. It's just, we're doing the best we can.
Wow. What's your goal for Leket in the future?
I mean, it would be nice if there was no need for the food. It would be nice if there's no waste. That's not going to happen. Look, our main goal is more of the same. We estimate maybe we're getting to 10% of what's out there. And we're very large already. So there's lots more of the same to do. And then, variations on a theme, I would say. Meaning figuring out clever ways to help communities that maybe don't have the right partner for us. So, for example, one of our newer projects is called Leket Express, and that's where we don't deliver to an agency, but we work with the municipality, and we come, once a week to the town square, and then people come to pick up bags of produce from us. And if they can't get there, then we ask the municipalities to figure out how to get the food to those people. So we're trying to find better ways to distribute, and we're also continuing and trying to grow ways we can help our agencies by being a real umbrella and providing them with what they need, whether it's food or not.
Joe, I want to thank you so much for coming here.
Thanks for that.
You're a real life Robin Hood.
Oh, very good. Yeah. It's fun.
Has anyone ever said that to you before?
So it's funny you say that. It's been a while since I heard that, but there is a very small agency that we do work with at Leket, and I do personally, and they call it Robin Food.
Oh, yeah.
And it's a great name. Yes. It would have been a great name for us to start out with, but I'm not sure what they'd call it in Hebrew. So, we tried to come up with a name that works well in Hebrew and English. Leket, it's a Hebrew word, but you can pronounce it. You don't have to change anything. It's not like, I tell Shari Tzedek, right? If they want their name in English would be Gates of Mercy Hospital, which there are Gates of Mercy Hospital, but they just call themselves Shari Tzedek, Shari Tzedek. So, Leket Israel, Leket Israel, it's the same name, Hebrew and English. A lot of people don't know what it means, which is good because it's a conversation starter.
What does it mean?
Well, Leket is one of the biblical commandments on how farmers in ancient times had to take care of the poor. So there was gleaning, right? The book of Ruth, she was gleaning. She didn't just get food, she found the husband also. Leaving a corner of your field, right, for the poor, not picking up things that fell off the wagon, all those things that we learned in day school, and which we essentially, that's what we're doing. Maybe not doing it in the ways that the rabbis wrote it, in the Mishnah, but it's exactly the spirit of the law. It's a modern take on ancient Judaism, because that's what's needed today, right? And it's just there, and we're fighting waste and feeding the poor at the same time.
Absolutely incredible. It's incredible because not only are you sort of helping people, but you're helping the environment as well, right?
Yeah.
You're in a very practical way getting people what they need. And I really, really appreciate it. And hopefully I'll be joining and volunteering as well.
We look forward to having you.
It would be my pleasure. Thank
Thank
you so much.
Thank you for the opportunity.
Is there anything that you'd like to plug?
I think I've done enough talking for one day. Thank you, everyone, for the opportunity. I hope you enjoyed the interview.
Yeah. Thanks so much for coming and listening.
Bye,
everyone.
Thank you for tuning in to this week's episode of The Dayna Show. If you like what you heard, you can subscribe to the podcast, like and share with your friends on social media, and rate us 5 stars. Don't forget to tune in next week, and we'll see you then.